All right, and I should know this though. I'm a remote teaching veteran, but I'm glad I forgot all these things after COVID. So like I said, I'm Greg Sanchez. I am the past president of the Colorado Mycological Society, and I'm going to introduce our current president here shortly. But I did want to give you kind of a status update here. This is something maybe we can pull up later, but if you haven't seen this film, this is where the world became aware of Larry Evans. And I found a link on YouTube. You can find it there too. So if you're interested, I can share that later. But I'm going to skip this too, Andy. I apologize. I think the Academy should have picked this one up for sure. You can find this on YouTube as well. It was a really good example of science in and the importance of science. But maybe if we have time later, I can show that. I don't want to take too much of your time. Yeah. All right. So as far as this proposal, just going to walk you through kind of a quick overview of what we've done so far. And so we currently have a bill in place, and it's going to be heard tomorrow on the Senate floor. And so the goal was to include fungi and the mushroom as a state symbol. All right, so we have 8 animals. We have 4 plants. Where's the fungi? And so that's what we are trying to work on here. All right, and so the choice that we went with, Agaricus Julius, it's a noble choice. The emperor is the nickname, formerly known as Prince. And so tomorrow, well, I'll show you, the bill is going to be heard on the Senate floor, and cross our fingers, it's going to happen. And so as far as the process, I teach civics, high school civics, and even though I teach this stuff, I had no idea how this worked. And so the steps that we've taken, just to kind of show you, this started way back. I mean, it started years ago, but we finally got introduced in January. All right. And so these are the steps we've gone through. The first chamber was in the House of Representatives. We had a committee hearing, had students participate with the committee hearing. Got through the Senate, or sorry, the House, moved to the Senate. And so just on Thursday last week, we had the committee hearing in the Senate. And then tomorrow is when this happens. And so 9 o'clock, I think in the morning, is when this bill is going to be read to the full Senate, and then they'll take a floor vote, and hopefully we have this at the end. So we're really close, and cross your fingers. I think we're almost there. All right. I think the effort was not mine alone. We have a joint committee, and you can see all the people that were part of this. I mean, everybody, we had a lot of contributions in a lot of different levels. And so we have many people to thank for this once it goes through. I also have to thank students, right? I think their voice really made a big difference. I had 7 students from our politics club at my high school that came to testify in the House committee. And so that was really well received. And the representatives were very, they gave them very positive feedback, and they were surprised that they actually did it. All right, and so this is what we're looking at. And if you can follow us on Instagram, we've got some things up there, but tomorrow's the day. All right. Yeah. All right, so I have the pleasure of introducing our current president, Lexi Murray. Come on up. We taught her the secret handshake at dinner, so now
we did. I didn't know it. Okay, well, hello, I'm Alexis, or Lexi. I guess people always ask me, I go by Lexi, but you'll always see me write Alexis because it's formal. But I just wanted to say, hey, I'm a new president. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see my president's letter. It's my first time ever being in charge of something so important, so I'm a little nervous, but I'm really excited, and I feel like I have a lot to bring you guys, but I have the pleasure of introducing Larry Evans, who is our first speaker. And I really reached out to him as our first speaker because he has inspired me in a lot of ways. Like, not only does he go out and do research, he is a musician, he makes great music about mushrooms. And ever since I got into the mushroom community, like, Larry Evans has always been a big role model for me. So I always had like, he was one of the first people that I chose out to pick. So here's Larry Evans.
Okay, so how do we do this? There, sir. Okay. You're live, sir. Let me just go here for the next. There we go. Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you coming out tonight and listening to this ramble about the Bolivian Amazon. I think I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. And every single season, every collecting season we go back, we find new material. The biodiversity down there has just been amazing. I've been working with the Bolivian National Herbarium since 2006, recording a bunch of different material. It is very challenging to try and get material out of, it was very challenging to get material out of the Parque Nacional Madidi that you see up there, where the temperatures usually in the 90s and the humidity is about the same. Just taking the collections up into La Paz, which is at about 12,000 feet, we lose a lot of material. A lot of the stuff that I take out of the jungle, it's like when you're taking a fish out of the deep ocean and you're bringing it up into the atmosphere, right? What you get is just kind of a pile of jelly and goo a lot of times. And so it's been really challenging to get identifiable morphological material, spores, things like this, back and be able to observe them in any way. Recently, DNA technology has advanced, and that's going to allow us to do a lot more. Is it not doing this? Okay. And allow us to do a lot more with a lot less biological material. I hope some of you got a chance to see this. This is the results of after the first 10 years of going down there. We took these a bunch of the most common 80 or 90 specimens that we collected time and again, put them in this folder so that people could get some sort of reference, because one of the main problems is there's such a huge diversity of stuff. People kept bringing us in more and more and more material, and we were identifying the same stuff over and over and over again and not really making any progress. Although we knew there was a tremendous amount of biodiversity, we kept working with the same 50 or 100 things that people went, wow, this is really cool. Look what I found. So we took about the first 100 biggest, showiest, most edible, smelliest, most offensive, craziest mushrooms we could find, and put them in this to give people kind of a baseline that they could use to identify the mushrooms. This is kind of for me, kind of a touchstone species. This is something that kind of characterizes how challenging it has been to collect down in this area. This Amanita grows right on the campus at the Universidad Mayor de San Andreas, UMSA, where the Bolivian National Herbarium is located. We've collected this material probably 15 times at the very least, still don't have a name on it. You know, we still don't have anything more than a characterization and a description. That here's a kind of an example of a day collecting in the jungle. You'll see that there's a lot of different substrates that we are looking at. Dead insects is one that we don't see as commonly in Colorado as we do down there. A lot of mushrooms grow on dry ground or dry wood. Other things is a tremendous diversity of the xylaria, the dead man's fingers types of mushrooms. They grow on all the tropical hardwoods down there. And because of a lot of the studies that I've done, there, I've done a lot of work with burn zone mushrooms up here. So when we got reports of burns in the tropical area, Wendy and I went down and tried to examine specifically in the burn zones to see if we could find unique mushrooms in those conditions. And sure enough, these were growing off the roots of a motaku palm, and we have never collected them previously. There's some more ripe stuff. Again, it's an ascomycete, probably, you know, somewhere in the xylaria, the general world of xylaria. And again, it's something that grows on the roots of pine, but we never see this normally being expressed except in this burn zone. Another thing that we saw in the burn zone that was pretty noticeable was the pink oyster here. And again, this pink oyster is growing on the very base of a motaku palm, which is a oil-rich type of native palm that grows down there. They're proposing using this. People already grow this for making their own local palm oil, and it's being proposed that they use this instead of importing the African palm oil nut into the area, which has its whole mess of other environmental considerations. But on the motaku, on this palm that is native to the area, we found growing the pink oyster mushroom. And because of this, the fact that it grows naturally here, and also because a lot of the people's protein sources have been compromised. Now, these mushrooms grow in maybe 2 or 3 weeks from wood and inoculated. We used the bagasso, the byproduct from sugarcane production. But this is where most people's protein source is down there in the upper Amazon. It comes out of the river, and it's got a tail. And it's also usually eating a lot of stuff off the bottom of the river, including, unfortunately, mercury from these mining operations and otherwise, where people are out there putting mercury into the river to coagulate, to try to get the gold into the bottom. And that mercury then escapes into the river. It poisons the fish. The fish accumulate mercury in their system. The people who are eating the fish out of the river accumulate that mercury in their system, and you get serious gross birth defects. And children are born that are not able to ever care for themselves, and it's a tremendously expensive proposition for people in the village areas next to the river here. And so that's inspired us to do this. This is how we get around up in the river, up in the Rio Beni. We go up in the dugout canoes. And what we have been doing recently, we've been given a bunch of workshops in this general area so that people can learn how to grow oyster mushrooms as an alternative source of protein. Now, right up here is what's proposed for this area. That at the very top, you see San Buenaventura and Rurnabaque, and the Angosto de Bala, the narrows of the Bala, is a little notch in a ridgeway where they want to put a dam, and that would put underwater everything that you'll see on this slideshow completely. It's would be under about 270 feet of water, and none of the monkeys or vegetation or cordyceps or anything like that can survive on the bottom of the big lake that they have proposed here. So here is a byproduct of sugarcane production. This mountain of bagasso here was sugarcane. Owen and I are loading up buckets here that we used to inoculate with pink oyster mushroom and then grow out in this series of workshops. You see, we've got one growing on here at the park. This is one of the results from one of our inoculations up in the jungle at a place called Pasiflor, where we work with folks, Senda Verde, who do animal wildlife rescue. Their main goal has been to provide a home for the animals that are the victims of the wildlife trade. And so, excuse me. So here we have an example of another one of our workshops. You see, we used the bagasso here. We used water bottles. We recycled water bottles to put the bagasso and the mushroom spawn in, and then people would take those home and take that and grow the mushrooms there. Yet another workshop that we did again down here at Pasiflor. We've had between 40 and 80 people who have taken advantage of our workshop systems down there. Here's an example. We've got the pleurotus stuck inside these water bottles that we've kind of razored open and put the stuff inside. Here's some of the results that came back after about 2 weeks. So it's been a really gratifying process for a lot of the folks down there to be able to grow their own protein and to be able to do this on a manageable scale. So our friends David and Daniela, who've been producing the spawn, are now up in their production to make as much as 80 kilos a week. We can get out to people who want to try and grow mushrooms in their buckets and their water bottles. Again, in a lot of these remote village communities where the only way that you can get back and forth is those canoes like we saw over there. And so they really depend on this as a way to get a protein source. And that again is one of our groups. We had a bunch of grad students and even one of the university professors, Vicky Ocio. Oh, here's another project we're putting. This is Alejandro. He's a Chicana man who's works in Medidi. We're inoculating using some reishi cultures that we got from mushrooms in the jungle. We're re-inoculating them on these. This is on a fig right here that they grow pretty easily on the fig. And we're hoping to see if we can propagate these as a means of an income source. Right now, Like in many places, the you get those little packets of instant coffee with a little bit of reishi in there. You've probably seen that. Right now, they sell those on the street in Bolivia for like $1 a piece, which is an incredible amount of money in Bolivia. And they have both the mushrooms and the coffee grow right there in Bolivia. So we're trying to get these guys like Alejandro, who lives in the jungle and who picks the reishi anyway, and get them to make this product that is so popular with people in La Paz. Reishi, if you're not familiar with it, the ling chi or the reishi mushroom, it's widely regarded as a medicinal in China, and it has quite an effect in terms of enhancing people's energy and endurance at high elevation. And with a lot of Bolivia's population living at about 11,000, 12,000 feet, that's been proven to be a real popular product. Coming down in November this year, we noticed that there was a lot of changes in the way that the seasons have been unfolding down there. People talk about the differences in global warming or climate changes, but this mushroom X10, like Ceruliteniapes, we call it X10 for short. And X10 used to be very common when I would go down in January or early February. Hadn't really seen much. We saw it one time this year, but when we went down in November, lo and behold, this stuff was everywhere. So we've seen a real shift in terms of the seasonality of mushrooms going, as much as 30 or 60 days into a different time. We have no real way to evaluate what that means. If that's going to impact insects and bird behavior and things like this. It's just an open question. But we do know that the seasons of a lot of these tropical mushrooms have changed pretty considerably. And this was in November as well. This is our first recorded report of termitomyces in Bolivia. This is a really important economically desirable edible in a lot of African countries. We haven't really turned it up in South America before, but again, it grows in association with termites and ants, and that's an exciting thing to see that source of protein there in Bolivia. There you see it in the site growing on a termite nest. Unfortunately, this one was a little too old to eat, but you can see it's a pretty hefty sized mushroom, and again, a very popular source of protein in Africa and other places. This is another one. This little beauty also grows on termite nests. This is an Lepiota spinospora. Excuse me. Which is a quite toxic mushroom. Definitely not one of the mushrooms that you would want to sample if you had a chance. And here's another really unique type of mushroom that I haven't really expected to find down there. This is a wolfipora. This is like related to your what we used to call the Polyporus tuberaster. And you see, this is a very good sized mushroom. It has the sponge underneath, good smell and flavor, and it also forms these large sclerotia on the roots of trees in the area. These are some interesting telostoma, some stalked puffballs. And every place is wet in the jungle except where people build a house and then put a porch and stuff out and put their pilings into there. And underneath is the only dry patch anywhere in the jungle. And that's where these guys come up. You find the telostoma every time I look under a building in the jungle. You'll find these little guys, stalked puffballs, and no place else. I never see them anywhere else. Here's another really big reishi type of mushroom that we found. The diversity of reishi or Ganoderma type mushrooms down there has been something that I don't have any way to characterize. We've found, because we haven't had the genetic sampling ability, a lot of the testing that I've been doing on things like Ganoderma is the old school bioassay. We take a little nip of it and taste it and chew it up a little bit, and you go, yep, that's pretty strong, or yep, that's not very strong, you know. And this certainly has been, you know, maybe a minimal, but certainly the only way that we've been able to evaluate the medicinal aspects of a lot of these reishi. And this one is, again, is a pretty good sized unit. You can see it also stains black where it's, or dark brown when it's touched. And this had a strong flavor of the reishi. Now, this is the same material that we came back after 2 months. This was all that was left. The reishi is pretty quickly eaten by beetles, and the beetles lay their larvae in there, and they clean out the reishi mushrooms usually within a month. I would say they've pretty much munched everything there. Here we are in our laboratory, our open air lab there on the edge of the cabin. We slice up the specimens, try and compare with what's familiar and what's not. We do have some little pocket microscopes that we bring along. We can take some pictures like this. We can visualize some Chylocystidia and a few of the other field characteristics to be able to put our collections into some sort of general category, and then hope that some of them make it back and we're able to actually analyze them. So a big part of the jungle is the stuff that lives in the jungle. In fact, that's all the stuff that lives in the jungle. And the animals that live in the jungle are really the victims of a lot of human activity, especially the traffic in animals. As a result, we've worked quite a bit with organizations down there to try and stop the trade and trafficking in animals and eating them. This is a capybara. These grow along the edge of the river. They're a primary food source for things like jaguars, and the caiman will munch these guys. They're pretty good size for a rodent. There's one of the jaguars. Now, Senda Verde provides a home for a lot of these critters because they're purchased, they're captured, and they're sometimes, for example, they'll be given to a young lady at her quinceanera, and she'll get a baby jaguar, a baby ocelot, and then that lasts for a couple of months, and then the animal reaches its sexual maturity and shreds the entire apartment, and everything is ripped into ribbons. And that's when they call Senda Verde and say, look, we got another problem. We would like you to come and get our kitty cat. And so sad as it is, a lot of the people who pay for these animals' detention and survival are the people who originally bought them or trafficked in the animals. So there's a lot of monkeys out there. Senda Verde is generally designed so that the people are inside where they belong and the monkeys are outside where they belong. And they can't cause too much trouble with each other that way. The monkeys certainly like to take your glasses or your anything that you've got in your pocket that you might bring along, is definitely interesting for a monkey. And if they can steal something from you and then, extort it for a banana or some other treat, they're really good at that. They understand kidnapping and ransom better than any human being, I think. They definitely have that figured out. This is our friend Vicky Osio. She's nursing a little howler monkey. This particular time they had, was it 14 howler monkey babies came in one shipment, in one a confiscated amount. And all of these monkeys can't survive 48 hours without being on, they don't have their own thermoregulation ability yet. And so all these babies have to sit on somebody's shoulder and crap on somebody's shoulder 24/7 until they've gone like 3-4 weeks and they're able to do their thermoregulation. So the volunteers at Senda Verde are really dedicated to keeping the critters alive. They have quite a few colonies of the squirrel monkeys, the yellow squirrel monkeys like this, and the marimono or the spider monkeys are definitely they're the real charmers for sure. But they're also really excitable. And if you don't want to move fast, or if they want a hug, you give them a hug. If they're done having a hug, don't try to hug them, because they do bite, and they're they're almost as unpredictable as people in how they behave. Chocolate is another real important aspect of the jungle down there. All you mycology people, if you can figure out how to fight fungal infections in cacao, your fortune is waiting. Right now, 2/3 of cacao fails to make it even to the basic stage of market. 2/3 of all the cacao rots on the tree or never makes it off the ground. So this has been a continuing issue, I think, in cacao production throughout South America, and it continues to be a challenge for mycologists today. This is where we are in Bolivia. This is Rurrenabaque, and this is where the dam is going to go in right around in here. And this is where we go up the river. Here's Madidi Jungle, and then again, Santa Rosa and Chalalan. All this is in the Picana traditional territory. The Chupiamonas people have this preserve, and on the outside here, this green line is kind of the ridge top, but on the outside of that green line, all the way up to Tumapasa, all the way up to Ixiamas, is a new road, a new highway, a new bridge that goes across the river, and this whole area has been opened up in the last 2 or 3 years like it's never been exposed before. And as a result, there's a lot more pressure for logging and for capturing the wildlife and stuff like this, because again, it's not too far from the highway that you see there. We're realizing that a lot of these one of the reasons there's so much biodiversity down here is because rivers divide this geography to the point where the monkeys cannot cross the rivers. And so you get two different kinds of monkeys living on different sides of the river. And the same type of diversity happens with, well, we assume with monkeys as it does with mushrooms and other plants. So here we are in 2024. After a couple of years that were really hot and we didn't see many, we were really glad to find some more cordyceps coming back this last year. This is on a bullet ant, which the bullet ant is got to have one of the most painful bites of any insect. So there's kind of some nice, so sort of satisfying to see the cordyceps, you know, getting this really painful ant and taking him out. Cordyceps are really interesting stuff. They are active at night. And in fact, the cordyceps respond to the vibration of the sound of the ant's footprints by localizing and vibrating and sending spores off. And when this big red fruiting body throws out the spores, it doesn't just throw out an individual spore like this. It sends out the spores wrapped together. They're all in, right? They're ascomycetes, so they're all coming out in a kind of a big ascus. But all these ascospores are fused together like a large cable. And as the cordyceps emits them, they come spiraling out and opening up, just like a cable that's unwinding, and it goes splat on the ants. The ants immediately know what's going on. They're not happy about this at all, and they do their best. But the cordyceps spores actually have chitinase, right? The same chitinase that digests chitin and allows the mushroom spore to germinate. That same chitinase enzyme burns right through the chitin of the ant and allows the mushroom to penetrate the chitin exoskeleton of the ant and get inside and munch down on the ant. So, aren't you glad you're not an ant, huh? Yeah.
That, go back real quick. Is that at the bottom? Is that an ant head?
That's the ant head right there, yeah. And it's kind of coming out of his like this part here.
Looks like a bird.
Yeah, he's an ant. He was an ant, not anymore. And this is Amazonicus. This is on a grasshopper, Saltamonte, and this is another great sighting with something that we used to see quite commonly, and then for several years we haven't seen too many. I'm thinking it could be because we've seen higher temperatures. The higher temperatures may inhibit the fruiting of the cordyceps, and also we almost only see cordyceps fruiting inside of primary rainforest. Certain other species will fruit in secondary rainforest, but a lot of them are pretty persnickety about where they want to fruit. Here's Owen going through the process of digging one up. This is a little Esaria. We used to call these Esaria tenupes, and that's growing on a beetle larva. You can kind of see the whitish finger-like projections coming off of the larva there. And this is not a cordyceps. So this is something to realize, that even though it looks weird and gross and there's some sort of insect involved, there's no mushroom here. This is just some luckless insect that got eaten by a bird and splatted on the side. So we do see a lot of other stuff. This was a cool one that we saw for the first time this year on a beetle larva. We brought the material back and we're having it DNA sequenced, but we don't have any nearest relatives to this material. So that's kind of a cool thing. You can see it's got the parathecia coming out there. But and then here's another good one. This is a cordyceps on a diptern that's growing on a fly. And it's interesting because you'll sometimes see two different cordyceps types fungus growing off the same insect. And also we've seen two sexual forms of the insect of the form, blah, 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 two different sexual forms of the fungus growing off the same insect, right? You'll see the haploid and the dikaryon both coming off of a single insect body. And this is probably the one that you should be afraid of all the cordyceps. This is the one that we know will occupy human tissue. This is a metarrhiza, and these will give you a pulmonary infection if you happen to be breathing in these green spores here. So yeah, don't lick the green bugs. Definitely.
Last of Us, right?
Right. That's they did use this. Yeah. And again, insects are a real important part of this ecosystem. Here's an example of one of the on one of the night walks we took. I think this is a wood scorpion. Yeah, it's one of the wood scorpions that glows under the UV light. That's kind of a fun thing to find when they're moseying through the forest. This is another example of mimicry. The butterfly here is called the owl eye butterfly, and if you put out food for the birds, they'll often put out bananas or something for the parrots to come in. But the birds, if this butterfly comes in and starts eating the bananas, the birds will not even come close. They will not even enter the area. So powerful is this mimicry that the butterfly has. And if you shoo the butterflies off, then the birds will all come back in. But they're absolutely terrified of this butterfly. It chases off birds that must weigh 50 times its weight. This is an interesting mushroom, Pycnoporus, one of the Termites mushrooms. When I reported that people were using this against dengue fever in South America, Robert Rogers was also publishing at almost exactly the same time accounts of the First Nations people in Canada using this against smallpox. So it's interesting to see this type of ethnobotanical knowledge on both sides of the equator by native peoples used for the same thing, which was to break a fever. And again, this is one of the few mushrooms that grows in open sunlight. Virtually every mushroom that I've encountered down in the Bolivian Amazon grows in the shade, except for this and Schizophyllum commune and one other polypore mushroom, which is just kind of an interesting thing. It only tends to grow where people are located. And this is another medicinal. Again, we're back to the reishi. This seems to spontaneously create this shiny part on the bottom of the reishi. Again, when it's under attack by beetles, the beetles tend to lay their eggs in this, and the mushroom seems to be making the shellac to cover up these insults that it's got. Where'd Greg go? Greg, do we have to do anything to get the last part started?
Yeah, it's on the other slide.
Yeah, we're just getting towards the end of that. But again, yeah. So here's some other examples of the reishi that we're finding down there. growing in the jungle. Some beautiful stuff. This looks a lot more like our local applanatum type mushroom, but again, both of these two had quite strong, call them a bioassay, had quite strong sesquiterpene profiles when we sampled them. And this interesting Brasidola is something we have also turned up in Telluride. Look at the coin down there. This is a big mushroom, big fleshy mushroom, grows on the side of the log here. This is a related one. We call this the pechuga de pollo, the chicken breast mushroom. But this one we found up in Colorado. We've eaten it several times. It is a delicious mushroom. And this also, not only the insects that you see on here, these are also commonly eaten by the local people. And I learned a little something in asking questions. I learned that I really had to be careful what question I asked in order to get the answer that I was after. And I would ask people, do you eat this mushroom? And invariably people would say, no, I don't eat that mushroom. And then I realized I had to ask, do people eat these mushrooms? And then the answer was universally yes. And the reason I had done this was because I hadn't appreciated that this mushroom was considered poor people food. And so if I would ask someone directly if they ate this, they would never say yes. That's what poor people eat. I don't eat poor people food, you know. But on the other hand, if you ask, is this an edible mushroom? Absolutely, yes. Everybody eats this mushroom, you know, when they can't afford to buy regular chicken. So I think that's one of the really important things. And again, one of the big questions that everybody wants to know is if you can eat it or not. You know, it's got to be some food. This is the Staheliomyces cinta, and this is really good food if you're a flying insect. It smells like a dead carcass, and if you're a fly and you get that green stuff on your little fly legs, you know, that's a great way to move those spores over to the next pile of poop or whatever, if you're a fly that you're going to go land on, right? So these get around quite effectively, and we even saw beetles swimming in the pools of slime that they create. And here's another one that sure looks pretty tasty. This is a xylaria here, and this spent quite a few years as an Entonema, I'll have you know. And Entonema is a perfectly good mushroom. It's something eats this stuff. We're not really quite sure what, but something munches these. They go away. They don't stay on the log for some indefinite period of time. They're there, and then some nighttime creature comes along and they're gone. But it's not that appealing, really. It's kind of gelatinous and crummy looking, and it's a xylaria, right? So it's yeah, but everything gets eaten in the jungle. You know, nothing hangs out for too long. This is another great one. One of the relatives of lentinus, right? Relative of the shiitake that grows down there. This grows on the fig. It's easy to propagate, and the local people have used these mushrooms for food source quite a bit down there. We have a number of the people in our classes have been propagating these in the fig and the woods that they have down there. Again, it's really easy to grow this. You can kind of see another example there. It's a delicious little mushroom. And we even have a bolete down there. This is the Phlebopus, and it's kind of like a swillis, and it's food. You can eat it. You know, we make it into soup. We cook it up and stuff, and this is where we cue Greg, and we get the next step. Yeah, I'm not sure which button we push at this point.
Can you say that again?
Flubopus.